a city that was once the capital of Ireland, where the first witchcraft trial in Irish history took place, where a friar wrote what he believed would be the last words of humanity, where Cromwell's army met fiercer resistance than at Drogheda, and where, centuries later, a castle that had sheltered dukes and kings was sold for £50. This is the entire history of Kilkenny. In this video, we use AI tools to visually rebuild what Kilkenny may have looked like across the centuries, combining historical archives, old engravings, and digital reconstruction. Some visual details or pronunciations may not be perfectly accurate, but our goal is to bring you as close as possible to a city most people have never truly seen. Long before any church or castle stood here, this land already had a name. The ancient kingdom that controlled this region was one of the oldest in Ireland, a buffer state caught between the provinces of Leinster and Munster. Its people called themselves the people of the deer. They left behind hill forts, burial chambers, and stones carved with an ancient script called Ogham. At a site south of modern Kilkenny, archaeologists found a burial of Roman type dating to around the 1st century, evidence that even in this remote valley, the outside world was never far away. By the 9th century, one of their most powerful kings had turned this small kingdom into a force no one could ignore. He fought Viking raiders but also forged alliances with them when it served his purpose. His reputation spread so far that an Icelandic saga listed him alongside Alfred the Great among the most prominent rulers of the age. In the 6th century, a monk from the north of Ireland founded a church on a hill above the River Nore. His name gave the city its name, the Church of Canis. Around that church, a monastic settlement grew. By the 8th century, it had become one of the major religious centres in the southeast. A round tower, still standing today at nearly 30 metres tall, was built around the 9th century, a bell tower, a landmark, and in times of danger, a refuge. But this was not a place of peace. In 1085, the Irish annals record that the settlement was largely burned. The first time Kilkenny appears in written history, it is already on fire. And yet the monks rebuilt. They always rebuilt until the day a new power arrived that would reshape everything. In 1169, everything changed. Norman knights crossed the sea from England and Wales, and within 2 years, one of their most powerful lords had claimed this region as his own. He built a wooden fortress on a ridge above the River Nore, right where the castle stands today. But the local Gaelic clans struck back. Within a year, they burned his fortress to the ground. It would take a far greater figure to turn Kilkenny into a real Norman stronghold. A man later called the greatest knight who ever lived arrived in the 1190s, rebuilt the fortress in stone, and gave the town its first charter in 1207, granting rights to merchants and freemen. Under his direction, massive walls rose around the town. Kilkenny was now split in two, the walled Norman borough in the south, and the older Irish settlement around the cathedral in the north. 2 communities, 2 laws, 1 city divided. In 1324, a wealthy Kilkenny woman was accused of sorcery by her own stepchildren. She had been married 4 times, and every husband had died. The Bishop of Ossory investigated and declared that she and her followers had rejected the Christian faith. What followed was the first witchcraft trial in Irish history, and one of the earliest in all of Europe. It became a direct confrontation between the power of the church and the power of local nobility. The accused woman had powerful connections. Her relatives among the local gentry had the bishop thrown in prison for 17 days. But the church won. The woman fled to England and was never seen again. Her maidservant was not so fortunate. She was flogged through the streets and burned alive at the stake. The first person in Ireland to be executed for heresy. In 1348, the Black Death reached Kilkenny. A Franciscan friar in the city recorded what he saw: entire families crossing to death together, houses emptied, friars dying one after another. He wrote knowing he might be the last person alive to hold a pen. His final words, "I leave parchment for the continuation of this work, in case anyone should still be alive in the future." He was never heard from again. The plague devastated the Norman townspeople far more than the rural Gaelic Irish. In its aftermath, English language and customs were fading. the settlers were becoming, as it was said, more Irish than the Irish themselves. In 1366, the English Parliament met in Kilkenny and passed a series of desperate laws banning intermarriage with the Irish, forbidding the Irish language, and even outlawing the game of hurling. It did not work. In 1391, one of the most powerful Anglo-Norman families in Ireland purchased Kilkenny Castle. They would hold it for nearly 600 years. Their name came from an ancient title, hereditary cupbearers to the King of England, with the right to tax every drop of wine imported into Ireland. That privilege made them extraordinarily wealthy. From Kilkenny, they controlled vast estates across the southeast and shaped the politics of the island for centuries. Their reach extended further than most people realise. A daughter of the family born in this castle married into the Boleyn family of England. Her granddaughter would become queen and lose her head. Through that line, Elizabeth I herself carried Butler blood from Kilkenny. In 1609, King James I granted Kilkenny its royal charter, formally recognising it as a city. In 1642, with England tearing itself apart in civil war, the Catholics of Ireland seized a moment that would never come again. Gaelic, Irish and Anglo-Norman Catholics, communities that had been rivals for centuries, united under a single banner. They chose Kilkenny as their capital. For nearly 7 years, this city became the seat of an independent Irish government. It had its own parliament, its own laws, its own treasury, even its own mint. At its peak, the Confederation controlled roughly 2/3 of Ireland. It was the closest the country would come to self-governance for nearly 300 years. But it could not last. In March 1650, Cromwell arrived at the walls with his army. The garrison, ravaged by plague, reduced to perhaps 300 men, held out for 6 days before surrendering. Cromwell's soldiers stabled their horses inside the cathedral. The dream of an Irish capital was over. After Cromwell, Kilkenny would never again hold political power. A deposed king sheltered in the castle during the winter of 1689, then lost his throne at the Battle of the Boyne and fled to France. The old Catholic families who had supported him lost everything, but Kilkenny quietly reinvented itself. In 1710, on the ruins of a medieval abbey, a Catholic brewer founded what would become one of the oldest breweries in Ireland, defying laws that forbade him from even owning the business under his own name. A young man from the countryside outside the city studied architecture, emigrated to America, and designed the White House. By 1935, the Butler family could no longer afford their castle. They held a days-long auction selling 600 years of possessions. In 1967, the last Marquess sold Kilkenny Castle to the people of the city for £50. His words, "There are already too many ruins in Ireland." Today, the castle stands restored. The cathedral still rises on its ancient hill, and the round tower, 1,000 years old, still watches over the marble city.